Embattled French President Emmanuel Macron is on the brink. The French government has collapsed, and many are wondering how Macron is going to survive this political crisis. And one of those waiting in the wings is none other than the one and only Marine Le Pen, leader of the National Rally. So, is this her moment? Well, we are going to find out. In moments of emergency, you don't have time to hesitate. Whether you're deep in the wild hunting or living off the grid, you need to be prepared for anything life throws your way. That is why you need the Wellness Company's Field Emergency Kit. It's the most robust, personal, urgent care, giving you the edge when seconds count. Packed in an IP67 military-grade, waterproof, and dust-proof case, this kit isn't just built tough, it's built to save lives. Inside, you'll find life-saving antibiotics, antivirals, antiparasitic, non-addictive pain relief, and even a generic EpiPen for critical allergic reactions. With over 60 conditions covered, this kit stands ready when medical help is miles away or simply not an option. Each kit includes an 85-page medical guide written by the Wellness Company's medical boards, guiding you step by step to handle emergencies with confidence. Designed for adventurers, survivalists, and anyone who refuses to leave their safety to chance, gear up with the Field Emergency Kit today, because when the unexpected happens, you won't just survive, you'll conquer it. Click the link below or use code Turley to save up to $180. If you're the man of the house, this is the perfect gift to ask for this holiday. Digital gift cards are available. Click on that link below right now. Well, President Macron addressed the French nation just hours ago and assured them that he is not going anywhere. He's absolutely not going to resign under any circumstances in the shadow of France's crumbling government. If you don't know, the Prime Minister Michel Barnier has officially resigned after having served as prime minister for only a few months. He's actually the shortest serving prime minister in France's history. And it was, in fact, the first successful no confidence vote for a French politician since 1962, what they did yesterday. So first no confidence vote in 60 years to pass. Last night, the French government collapsed after this no confidence vote passed with significant support fueled by the so-called far right, the National Rally, led by the one and only Marine Le Pen. We'll get more into Le Pen's role in all this in a moment. Now, Michel Barnier is but the latest casualty in the complete political instability that's just ravaging France. And in many ways, and this is going to be my overall argument to you in this video, President Macron really only has himself to blame for this. If this really is the end of the road for Macron's presidency, he will only have himself to blame. He engaged in some pretty sophisticated Game of Thrones maneuvers behind the scenes that in many respects, it's responsible for this political crisis. It goes back to the summer, okay? Just last summer, during the Paris, those pathetic Paris Olympics, 2 weeks, there's a 2-week window. It's the last week of June going to the first week of July. And what France did is they held their 2 rounds of national elections. And in the first round, I mean, everything looked like the so-called far-right parties, they're always called in the media, the National Rally Party. It looked like they were going to win the elections in a blowout. They won by far the most seats in the first round of elections. And they were poised to win easily the parliamentary majority in the second round. But that's when the, shall we say, the behind-the-scenes shenanigans started to play out. Macron convinced, get this, Macron convinced more than 200 of his own party's members, his party called the Renaissance Party. He convinced over 200 of them to drop out of the second round and turn around and endorse all the far-left candidates who were running. They're part of what's called the New Popular Front, led by Jean-Luc Mélenchon. And we're talking pretty far left here, guy. I mean, they even make the socialists cringe, okay? But what Macron wanted was for them to team up and beat Marine Le Pen and National Rally. And it worked. Macron successfully thwarted the remaining National Rally candidates, the so-called far-right candidates, from coming to power. And he did it by instead, ironically, putting the far left into power. Now, no party got an outright majority in the French Assembly. So there's got to be some coalition building. And that's the job of the prime minister. And what the far left party, the New Popular Front, wanted was for Macron to appoint one of their own as prime minister. The problem is that if Macron appointed a far left prime minister, that would mean they would repeal Macron's entire economic program. They were all promising to gut Macron's economic policies during the campaign, which of course he doesn't want. It would be a black mark forever for his legacy. So guess what Macron did? Macron turned around and appointed a prime minister, this fellow Michel Barnier, who was supported by National Rally, the so-called far right. Again, you can't make this stuff up. In order to thwart the rise of the right, Macron sides with the left. But in order to thwart the governance of the left, he sides with the right. And of course, in the process, he's made everyone upset. So then you got to ask, why on earth would Marine Le Pen and National Rally rise up and vote against this prime minister that they previously supported? Why would they vote to collapse the French government? Well, again, this is where things get very intriguing. This is real life Game of Thrones. Marine Le Pen is not interested in toppling a mere prime minister, Barnier. Marine Le Pen is interested in toppling once and for all President Macron. Now, the key to understanding all of this is understanding French politics. And French politics, it's basically a two-tier system. The French Assembly, which is led by the prime minister, they basically run the day-to-day affairs of the nation. He's in charge of the domestic affairs. And then you have the presidency, Macron. So he's really, how do I put it? He's sort of a meta leader in a sense. He's supposed to embody the moral vision for the nation. And he's in charge of France's position in international affairs. So he's the leader of France for the world. And, he's supposed to be kind of above it all, almost monarchical, but alas. But as we saw, the two tiers of government are obviously inextricably linked in that the president has the authority. It's the president that has the authority to appoint the prime minister. And Marine Le Pen has come out and said openly that right now, President Macron has only three options. This is Marine Le Pen. So this is the way she's thinking here. And she's right, by the way. He can dissolve the government and order new elections, just like he did back in the summer. He can reshuffle the government and try to create a new governing coalition. Or, and this is the only other remaining option, he can resign. And with these three options laid out by Marine Le Pen, we can now see how she's eyeing for the presidential prize. She's eyeing for the presidential palace because the first option is completely untenable, given the fact that the French Constitution only allows for one national election per year. Remember, this is European politics. They could probably end up having elections every other week. So they only have one once a year. So the earliest would be next summer, 2025. The second option, trying to reshuffle the coalitions in order to have a functioning government, that's going to be a hard order. It appears almost impossible. I'll walk you through those options in a moment, but there's really nothing that Le Pen's party, National Rally, are going to go along with. And there's very little that the far left, the New Popular Front, that they're going to go along with. So it looks like the only government that can work is one that has National Rally's support or the New Popular Front support. And they're both signaling that support ain't coming. And so then that only leaves one other option, Macron's resignation. And what do you know? Take a look at the latest polls. The French overwhelmingly want Macron gone now. 60% of the country, 6 in 10, want him to resign. They do not want him to finish out his 2027, his tenure. And so Marine Le Pen, I think, is putting, all her ducks in order, as it were. And did I just mix metaphors? Or probably, but she's seeing her chance. If Macron resigns, that's her green light to win the presidency, because of all the presidential candidates. She's the one, the available one. She's the one that polls by far the highest. Now, as I mentioned just hours ago, Macron he came on, did a national speech, got on television live. He has officially ruled out any chance that he's going to resign. Nope, not happening. He said he's going to serve until the rest of his term, until 2027. And so the only other option he has, given the three that are before him, is to try to find some way of creating a coalition that's going to work inside a deeply fractured French parliament. Now, he could conceivably renominate Michel Barnier, who was just ousted. Despite his government collapsing, he could still renominate him. Most argue that's a very, very tall order. That's probably not going to happen. And even if it did, we'll see another government collapse in the next several hours. He could appoint a far leftist prime minister from the Popular Front Party. That's what he was originally supposed to do. That's how they banded together during the elections. But then the problem for Macron is that he and his party would have to abandon either Macron's policies, or the far left party would have to abandon their anti-Macron agenda. In other words, they would have to abandon everything they campaigned on. That's the only way they're going to have a governing majority. So one is going to have to give. It may happen, but again, it's a tall order. Macron could appoint, in European politics, what's called a technocratic government, which would actually involve bureaucrats from outside the governing parties coming in and governing with the assent of the majority. Italy had a technocratic government for 2 years when their government collapsed, before Giorgia Meloni and the Brothers of Italy rose to power. That's probably dead on arrival. We'll see again, but I think that option is probably dead on arrival, given the partisan divide. And finally, Macron could try to form a kind of centrist coalition by appealing to the more center wing of each one of the parties, and try to alienate both the far left and the far right, so-called. Again, that's risky, in that it could easily end up alienating members of every party from their more dominant and faithful ideological colleagues, who could easily band together against them. So this is all another way of saying Macron does not appear to have any viable options. Now, that doesn't mean he's not going to pull something off, but as things stand, Macron is unfortunately reaping what he sowed over these last several months. He connived to keep the right out of power by making an alliance with the left, only to turn around and make a governing alliance with the right to keep the left from wiping out his economic reforms. All of this, ultimately, I would argue, all of this instability is Macron's fault. And so if his own presidency is at the brink, ultimately, he only has himself to blame.